My name is Jillian, and I'm host of the Blogger Genius podcast. Before we get into today's interview, let me ask you a question. Are you wishing you could sell digital products like digital downloads or workshops, memberships, coaching, mini courses, but you don't know where to start? And are you tired of complicated tech and spending way too much money on monthly subscriptions? Well, you need a tool that makes all of this simple, and the answer is MiloTreeCart. So this is the tool we built for non-techies who want to tap into a new income stream. With MiloTreeCart, you get fill-in-the-blank sales pages, checkout pages, a sales dashboard, upsells, and support from people who seriously care. And right now, for a limited time, we are selling MiloTreeCart for a lifetime deal of $349. Pay once or in 3 easy installments and enjoy it forever. Hit pause right now. Head to milotree.com. We offer a 30-day no questions asked money back guarantee, so there is no risk. And if you buy before the end of August, as a bonus, I'm offering a 1-hour free coaching call with you, which I usually charge $300 for, to make sure you are set up for digital product success. Again, head to milotree.com to sign up.
Welcome to the Blogger Genius podcast, brought to you by MiloTree. Here's your host, Jillian Leslie.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Jillian Leslie, and I have a really good episode today all about mindset. I am interviewing a woman named Andrea Liebross, and she's a business coach. She takes a holistic approach to coaching, and she coaches mostly women. She also has a podcast called Time to Level Up. As you know, I like to share what I'm learning, as I've been getting on so many calls with all of you MiloTreeCart customers. And the thing that I continue to see is how we tend to hold ourselves back, how we can't let go of our perfectionist tendencies, how we can trip ourselves up with some of the stories we tell ourselves. And Andrea and I talk about what it really takes to build a business, how it isn't all glossy and peachy colors, how it is about facing the parts of yourself where you have self-doubt, or as she likes to call it, where you're in the messy middle. I thought that was a very interesting way of addressing those times when you're not exactly sure what your next move is and how to continue to grow not just a thriving business, but a thriving life. So without further delay, here is my interview with Andrea Liebross. Andrea, welcome to the Blogger Genius podcast.
Thanks, Jillian, for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
So I know nothing. I feel like we are best friends, and yet I know nothing about your background. So would you share your entrepreneurial journey and where you are today?
Sure. So I'm going to share with you one of my favorite sayings, first of all, is being an entrepreneur is a journey in personal development disguised as an entrepreneurial roller coaster.
Oh, I love that. And I totally agree. Like the best way to work on yourself, go start a business.
Go start a business, right? Because it's supposed to be an adventure, but sometimes it's adventurous, but you can't withstand the adventure unless you're working on yourself. So I work with entrepreneurial women. 98% of my audience is women. And I'm a big believer in, yes, we can all grow amazing businesses, and I love doing that and helping them do that. But we also have a life. So I like to say I'm a business coach who takes a holistic approach. And that word holistic is definitely overused, but I never forget that we are humans, right? So sometimes when I get on a coaching call and we're all start off talking all about business, soon it turns into, but I'm not getting enough sleep because my 4-year-old's been up all night. So that's all fair game. So I coach business, but I also coach life because I think that's part of it, especially as women.
Especially as women.
Yeah. It's all fair game. And I got into this because for about 10 years, I worked as I was recruiting, hiring, and training. That's what they called it. But basically I was recruiting, hiring and training or coaching new entrepreneurs to work for more under a corporate umbrella as 1099. So they were all their own business owners. They just sold a product that this corporate was producing. And so it's kind of a weird business model, but that's what it was. So what I found was I found people who either wanted to do this as a side gig, or some of them were like going all in and they were making 6 and 7 figures, and they got into their business. They had lots of excitement going in. They actually, most of them, 99% of them were actually, in their eyes, successful. And then all of a sudden, and I'm putting that in air quotes, all of a sudden it started to get hard. It started to feel messy. They started to feel stuck in some way. So there's the stuckness either can come from, I say, confusion, like, I don't know what to do next, or it can come from success. Like, oh my goodness, I cannot believe that this is actually happening. And I now have 100 clients, or I have sold 5,000 pencils, even though none of my clients sell pencils, but you get my point. So they get to this place where they don't know what to do. And I call that the messy middle, right? So they're in the messy middle. It's not day one and they're not about to close their door. They're not at that place, but they're in this messy middle. And I actually have written a book that's coming out in September of 2023 called She Thinks Big. So we need to be thinking big. The Entrepreneurial Woman's Guide to Moving Past the Messy Middle and into the Extraordinary. And I found in that corporate role that I was in, that that's where everybody was. They were in that messy middle, but they knew, like, they had it in them, this little voice that said, hey, I know I can do this. I am capable of so much more, but something was getting in their way. So I'd had enough after 10 years of this corporate gig, and I left them. And when I examined, kind of had a little retrospective moment, why did I stay so long? Like, there had to be something that I really loved. And it was that place, like coaching them past that place was really what got me going. So I decided to open my own business and do what I wanted to do in 2018. And I have been coaching entrepreneurial women ever since. And they're in all industries. They are in all phases of their business. I have people that are, I would say the majority are in that messy middle though. They're making multiple 6 figures. They're pushing, they're almost at 7. And they just need that support and guidance. And they kind of need a Sherpa, to be honest, like someone to carry the backpack.
So,
as they go up the mountain.
I have a question. As a woman,
yes,
is it possible to have it all?
Okay. How do we define have it all? Right.
I want my business. I want to be a mom. I want to be like a wife or a partner. I want that life that I see on Instagram.
Yes, you can have it all. I think you can have it all. I think you have to create what I call your happiness set point. Okay. So your happiness set point this is the best way to describe it. And I got this from another coach, so I appreciate her for sharing this with me. So movie Forrest Gump. Okay. Movie Forrest Gump. We have Lieutenant Dan, and then we have Forrest Gump. And if you think about it, Lieutenant Dan thinks he's just fine, right? Like he's just going through his day. But I think from the outside, or at least the way the movie portrays it, he's kind of a grumpy guy. He looks at everything negatively. And then we have Forrest Gump, who maybe you could argue is like on the other side of, La La Land in a sense, right? Like he's way on the other side. And when we say, like, who do we want to be like? Would we rather be like more like Lieutenant Dan, or would we rather be like Forrest Gump? I mean, what do you think, Jillian? Who do you want to be like?
I kind of want to be somewhere in the middle.
Yes. Okay. That's what most people say, right? They want that happiness set point to be a place where they're somewhat challenged in a sense, right? Like they're pushing themselves to greater things.
Right.
It's not all rainbows and daisies.
Right.
If it were all rainbows and daisies, like life wouldn't be interesting.
Right.
Right. But yet, like, they don't want to be Lieutenant Dan and they don't want to be Forrest Gump. They want to be somewhere in the middle. And I think that is honestly what having it all is, right? So that you're continually pushing yourself into growth, personally and professionally. And it's not like everybody's sitting at the pool drinking margaritas in the sunshine. I think we should totally have days where we're doing that. And then I think we should have days where we're doing something that might be a little scary. But after you've done it, after you put yourself out there, you're like, oh, look at me go. Look at me go. Like, look at that. And that's just as energizing as sitting by the pool with the margarita.
When I think about my entrepreneurial journey, and
Yeah,
I say that you can have it all, but not always at the same time.
I
And
completely
when
agree with
I
you.
had my daughter, and my daughter was not a sleeper, and it was
Yep.
super stressful for years, I couldn't do as much. And now
Right.
that she's 16, guess what? Like, I can send her off and I can do more. And so
Yeah.
for the moms, let's say, who are at the beginning of motherhood, that is rougher. And I remember saying to my mom, like, it's never going to be that I'm going to be able to drop my daughter off at a play date, because this was the time when she was 2 and 3, and I was going to the play date with the other mom, and we're all dancing around like princesses and mermaids.
Yes.
And I'm going,
Yes.
never
Yes.
is she going to let me leave. And ultimately, guess what? She did. And then she started playing
Yep.
with her friends. And now she's like this independent little woman. And so it is like stages. I feel like business growth is like stages. Life, especially as for women, is stages.
Yep.
And that it does come back. It's just different. But to assume that you're going to be as hard charging when your kid isn't sleeping and you're spending half your night dealing with that,
Yeah.
like, you've got to have grace to
You
make
do.
it
You
through.
totally do. So I have a client who right now, we've been talking about this. She has kids that aren't sleeping through the night. Okay. So she's got kids that aren't sleeping through the night. And we were on a coaching call, and she was talking to me about how she's a super successful interior designer. And she was talking to me about how she feels like she just can't keep up. There's 1,000 things on her to-do list. And so we were going through, I have this method I call schedule, plan, do. So we were going through schedule, plan, do, and we were kind of deciding what could she delegate? What could she not delegate? What was it like maybe just a no for now, not no forever. And then, which is what I love doing in business, because I'm kind of helping her get more systematized, create some more processes, look at what she's like. Does she have a business plan? Is she following it? We're doing all that. And then finally comes out and she's like, you know what? I'm just really, really tired. And I said, what's going on? Well, my kids, no one's sleeping through the night. I am up. I probably get 2 hours of sleep in a row. And then I'm up, and then I have to bring someone back to their room. And then, and I've been there. Like, I'm a mom, like we've all been there, right? We totally get it. So we just stopped talking about like business. And I said, what are we going to do with this sleep problem? Like, how are we going to solve this? Let's solve it. And maybe it's not totally solvable right now. Maybe this is just the season that you're in, right? We all know, like, they're not going to not sleep through the night when they're 17. We can't wake them up when they're 17. So, what's the real problem? So the real problem when I was talking, the real problem is that she's exhausted. The real problem isn't that her to-do list seems overwhelming or that she can't get things done or planned or whatever. It's just, she's exhausted. So I think you're completely right. And in business, the way I see this kind of also in business is I say that there's an image of this in my book, a graphic, where there's kind of like upward spirals. Okay. So there's like 3 upward spirals usually in every, the course of every business. Each of the spirals, the messy middle is always there, but it gets the intensity is different. And what makes up the messy middle is different. So in the beginning, you've got a belief like, hey, I'm going to create this business. You decide, okay, so there's a decision, I'm going for it. You start to put things into action. That's step 4. And then you assess. Okay. And somewhere in there, and everybody's place is a little different, there's a messy spot. Like, you can't get from the belief to the decision, or you can't from the decision to the action. But eventually it happens and the business starts and you start to make money, or you start to be profitable, or it starts to be successful, whatever that looks like. Then all of a sudden you're like, now what do I do? What's next? Do I have to hire team members? Do I need contractors? Can I handle this all by myself? And then you go into the next spiral, right? And it's the same thing. You believe that if you grew a team, hey, this would get a lot easier. And then you decide, I'm going to kind of make that happen. Then you put it into action and you figure out what that looks like, bringing people onto a team. And then you assess, hey, are these the right team members? Or do I need more or less? Or are they doing the right things? There's a spot in there where it's messy. Usually when the messy part is right after you hired them and you're trying to help them to figure out what to do, right? So that's the messy middle. And that's like the stage you're in, right? Then you get to the next spot. Okay, now I've got employees, maybe, I mean, not even contractors, they're employees. And oh my gosh, now I have 4, 5, 6 product offerings. And now I realize that I could be serving a worldwide audience. Okay, now what do I do then? So you go through the same thing: belief, decide, action, assess. There's always a messy middle. So it does very much, it's like life, right? Different stages, different beliefs at different, like you didn't believe you could get past the, I'm never going to be able to drop her off, but you did.
Absolutely.
Right?
One thing that I think we are very aligned in is this idea of, I call it, you call it, what did you called it? I call it puppies and rainbows. What did you just call it? Something daisies.
I call it rainbows and daisies.
Okay, rainbows and daisies. But it's the same idea. And I feel like my podcast, my intention in my podcast is to debunk the belief that business building looks like Instagram. And it's all like, you know, the colors is like peach and kind of gold. And like, I'm like hashtag girl boss, or I guess that's not cool anymore. I'm hashtag SEO, not CEO, girl CEO. And like, I'm wearing like a funky hat, like a kind of fedora. And I just like happen to be in this like magical pose. And it's as if $1 million is just like flying in, and I'm so freaking successful. And I want to debunk that. And I want to go, it looks like real business building is messy. It's uncomfortable. It is weird. It is challenging. It's going to trigger you in so many ways. And the people who have success are the ones who get triggered, who feel uncomfortable, who hate their jobs from time to time, but who stick in it because there's a larger goal. And so that I feel like you speak to in the messy middle, which is that discomfort, that kind of like, I feel it is like subtle nausea. Like, do I really have to do this? It's like pushing that rock up the hill is like, oh, it's too hard. And then you do it.
Yeah. Like, sometimes when someone says, all right, Andrea, I'm in, like they join my mastermind. Right. And it's an investment of time. I say these are resources: time, money, brain power, and relationships, like the people you want to be with. So I said, do you feel like you're going to vomit? And I was like, kind of. Like, okay, good. Perfect. I love it, because that's how you should feel.
Yeah. Like I want to normalize the vomit, like the nausea. Like I want nausea to be a good thing. Like, meaning you're in the right direction. Like if you're in the right direction isn't kind of making you feel a little like off balance, not in a drunk good way, but in a like, oh, I could really hurt myself here. Like that's when I think you're there. That's when, because it's not all that. I don't want to say that there are major highs, like you get sales and money's coming in and you're serving people and people are emailing you love letters, which always save, by the way, in a folder called love letters. You know what I mean? Like there are these high highs, but there are also low lows, and that is just part of it.
There's so many low lows. It's, I like to say also like that vomity feeling. If you've moved, so like, if you think about this in business, and I'm guilty of this, just like everybody else, there are things that I'll call it interested in. Okay. Like I might be like, for a while there, I was interested in writing a book. Okay. Then you switch to committed. Okay, I'm doing it. And usually when you make that shift from the interested to the committed is when you kind of get that feeling like, I'm really going to do this. And if you don't have that feeling that you're going to like lose your breath or vomit, you probably are still in the interested, right? Or on the other end of the spectrum, you might be in what I call attached. Okay. So what attached looks like is that it must look like this. In order for me to do this, it must look like this. Like, let's go back to the mom who has the like infants or toddlers or people in play groups. Okay. So they might say to themselves, if I'm going to grow this business, then I must have 5 hours of uninterrupted time every day where I can work on my business, where no one's going to come and ask me for a snack, where I'm not going to get called to go to school to pick up a sick kid, where the dog is quiet by my feet all the time, not making a peep. Okay. And they're attached to what the picture must look like. Okay. And those people are actually not committed in a sense either, because they're waiting for that magical time when that's all going to come into play. Okay. And I think you and I both know that, yeah, that might be the scenario, the scene, we'll call it the Hollywood script for a day or two, but it's probably not going to be for the long period of time. So those people that are attached. So if you're listening and you're like, yeah, that's me. I think that working out must look like 30 minutes every day on the treadmill. And if I can't get 30 minutes in, then forget it. You're not there either. Right? You've got to just be committed to feel whatever it's going to feel like. So sometimes people say to me, hey, Andrea, what do you think confidence is? And I always say that confidence is just the willingness to feel every feeling.
Ooh,
That's
I like that. I like that. I like that.
Yeah, it's just, that's all it is. It's not like you're always feeling prepared or determined. Like confidence can be frustrated. Confidence can be anxious. Confidence can be stressful. But if you're willing to feel all of those things, then you're confident. If you're not, and you're trying to avoid it, then we got something to work on.
I want to take a short break to say, yes, we are all feeling a level of anxiety in our businesses because of the explosion of AI. I believe the best way today to build a thriving business is to show up as a human. And one way you can monetize this is by selling human-centric digital products to your audience. Now you might go, but I wouldn't even know where to start. No problem. I have a personality quiz. And if you go to milotree.com/quiz, you can get your copy and it will show you, based on your personality, what kind of digital product you should create first. So again, milotree.com/quiz, and then email me and tell me what kind of digital product creator you should be. And now back to the show. I think of it as weather patterns. When you can start to see these emotions, and some of them can be really ugly and really uncomfortable, but it's like weather. I live in Texas and we have like crazy weather. I didn't understand this until moving here. Like the storms are real. Like,
yeah, they are
crazy.
Real. And you can see them coming, right?
Oh my God. Oh my God. Like hailstorms are real things. And it sounds as if like
flash flooding.
Oh my God. So, but then they pass. And I do think, and it's kind of very Buddhist to be able to, and by the way, like they're not comfortable. It's not like this belief, like I don't want to paint this picture, like I can, they're just weather system. They're bad when they're here. You are going to get soaking wet. Like they can be dangerous, but they pass. And so if you can stick in there, I think that is 9/10 of it. And
I do too.
If you can notice, so for example, I shared this, actually, we just recorded on your podcast. And so now we're back on mine. And I shared this on yours, which is, we sell Milo Tree Cart to help people sell digital products.
Yep.
And I'm all about, you've got to be creating lots of different things to test, because then each one is not as precious. You're not as attached to the result of that one product that you've worked so hard on, and that somehow it's tied up with your self-worth and self-esteem. And if it doesn't sell, you're a loser, blah, blah, blah. And instead, take a lighter path, which is create a variety of things, test a variety of things. Don't create them quickly, get them out there so you don't have that level of attachment. And that way you can be like, oh, that didn't work. Okay, what else can I try? So I think in my business journey, the lighter touch I can kind of put onto things, the better. The more I have the wisdom of, I've had some serious successes and I've had serious failures, and I'm still here. So even when it felt like either the highest of the high or the lowest of the low, ultimately, you're right. I come back to my set point and I move on. So how can I touch things lightly rather than be all in and so invested, so that then I can be disappointed if it doesn't work the way I think it's going to?
I think, okay, so those are great. Like, how can I do that? Right? How can I do that? So I think here's two things that come to my mind. Number one is to really embrace ambiguity. Okay. So uncertainty is real, right? And uncertainty is a real, and it's a constant fear, right? And uncertainty and ambiguity are inherent in entrepreneurship. Like, that's just what it is. And they never leave. Right? You'll always have the unknown. Even though you just find out what works now, it might not work later. So, and there's even unknowns about the unknown. So recognizing that you'll never have all the information, like you're going to have a lot of information, but I don't know what all the information is. You're never going to have all the information. Recognizing that is important, because like I call this in my book, I call it the blank spot of impending catastrophe. Okay. It's just like out there. It's like impending catastrophe.
It's like the other shoe's going to drop. The other shoe's going to drop.
Yes. But it doesn't have to be there. Right? Our like cave woman brain loves catastrophizing. Okay. But just as available, equally as available, is the thought of impending awesomeness or impending extraordinariness. Okay. So like, why not look forward to the unknown? Like, it would be really boring if we knew everything that was going to happen. Okay. If we knew what everything was going to happen, like none of your gifts over the holidays or birthdays would be really a surprise, right? You'd know everything that everyone was going to do. So I just did this in my, two times I just did this. Once was in my retreat. So every 6 months I host an in-person retreat for all the people in my mastermind. And they always are asking, like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And I never tell them. And I say, it's just going to be a surprise. You just need to show up. You're going to be here, and you have to trust that over the next 3 days, it's going to be amazing. And I just did that. And at the end, I said, what did you think about that I wasn't telling you everything? And guess what? They loved it. Sometimes, like, it's so much more fun to go with the flow and not control everything. All right. So that's kind of one example of really embracing ambiguity. Another example I have from today is I was working with a client this morning, and I was encouraging her strongly to raise her prices. Okay. It kind of was like I was like, do you think you're charging enough? She's like, no. I said, so why haven't you raised your prices? Well, I'm afraid that people won't buy if I raise my price. And I said, okay, but guess what? You're not giving equal airtime to what if people do buy? What if actually more people buy because they're feeling like you're more legit, or there's like more value in it, or whatever they're thinking? You're not giving that equal airtime. And wouldn't it be really fun to think about, instead of 60% of people saying yes to you, 75% said yes to you, and actually even at a higher price tag. Like, what about that? And she's like, I never thought of it like that. So I think you've really got to embrace the ambiguity. And the second thing is you've got to seek support, right? Like, as entrepreneurs, like, who constantly battle the fear of failure, or like coaches, mentors, communities, support networks, they can be vital sources of reassurance. And why not? Like, why not put yourself in that container where where things can become a lot easier? Like, your product, like, you want to make tech easy. Like, you don't want this to be hard. You're doing everything possible to make it super easy. So why not try to make everything easy? Why not give yourself the support you need or crave to make it easy? I joke around, I'm going to buy a big, like, red easy button.
Yeah.
Press it.
Yeah.
Right. I think, like, the number one, I mean, there's research out there, like Harvard Business Review. They recently did this study of entrepreneurs, and asked how, like, the benefit of being in part of a community of peers with a support system. And the research overwhelmingly showed that the number one reason, or the number one factor why some businesses succeeded and some don't, is because it aligned with, or the reason is whether or not they're seeking support or not, whether they're being supported or not. That's big. So embrace the ambiguity and seek the support. That's what I say.
And one thing that is super great about support, especially like having, even if it's just like one friend who can point out to you your special sauce. Like, what is it about you that's different that you don't see in yourself? Because to you, it's just the water you swim in. And two, who can track your growth. Because we all fall for this, which is, oh, I will be happy when I make $1,000. And then guess what? You do make no. I will be happy when I make $40,000. And then you do. And then you go, oh, no. I will be happy when. And it's that thing where we kind of are constantly moving the goalpost. So to have somebody who can say, do you remember when you said, when you make that first $1,000, way back?
Yeah.
And you go, look where you are today, because I feel like we don't see our special sauce and we don't see how far we've come. It's only how much further we have to go. And just those reframing, like your reframing of opening the choice space to the positive side, to the positive side and the negative side, like all of a sudden reminding yourself of these little things, or having somebody who can help you go, hey, maybe the sky isn't falling. Maybe it's going to be sunny tomorrow. It's like just these things, I think, go so far. They really
so
can
far
keep you in the game. And I always say this, if you can stay in the game, that's like 9/10 of it. Like, you are more apt then to run into luck. Everybody goes, well, you need luck or lucky, or I got lucky or whatever. You know how you get lucky? Because you're in it, because luck can find you.
Yes.
So it's about, being consistent, showing up, being there when it's hard, when you have the stomach ache. And I think that the antidotes to that are exactly what you're saying, which are people around you who can kind of counter your negative self-talk or your catastrophizing, those kinds of things. That those things are incredibly powerful.
It's interesting too, because I have a lot of times someone will get on a coaching call and they'll start telling me all the details of what's going on and all the things that have happened in the past. And I'm kind of notorious for cutting them short and saying, okay, so what's the problem? Right. And it's kind of a showstopper, because often they can't answer the question. Like, there is no problem. In the end, the real problem is usually fear that they don't want to feel a negative feeling, right? Often that negative feeling is the worst thing that they can experience, right? And the good news is we can change that. Like, we can learn how to embrace all of that uncomfortable. right? We can learn how to do that. This happens a lot when people talk about pricing, when people are trying to decide, should they charge $20 for the download or should they charge $200?
Right.
Right.
Because it's
And
exactly.
it's, and that's really just like, I'm sure you could guide them into formulas and everything else, but we don't know, right? It's an science experiment. So I always say, like, think about it this way. Whatever you're charging them, okay, it's really almost a reflection of the amount of transformation that you're providing them. Like, the more you charge, I have a podcast on this on my podcast. My podcast is called Time to Level Up. So go look for the one on what you're worth. But it's like, I like to think about these doors you're opening. So if you're only charging $2, you're opening like a $2 door. But if you're charging $200, you're opening a $200 door, like $200 worth of transformation in their brains, and you're saving them. You're serving them, right? You're saving them time and money and energy. And why not? So the problem isn't really what to charge. The problem is you thinking about yourself and your own worth and your own, like, that's a you problem. It's not a them problem. It's not what will they pay. It's what are you feeling? What's your own, how are you valuing yourself? Because really how you value yourself is a combination of the price tag is made up of three things. What you, like, your service you're offering. Is it, does someone need your service? Yes. Do you think you know what you're doing? Yes. And the third thing is, do you believe in the emotional and financial maturity of your client? Do you think that they're going to get that this is $200 worth of transformation? And not 99% of the time they do. They do, but we just don't trust it. So the real problem isn't the price. It's not them. It's not about all the history of things that you've sold and not sold. It's really about you believing and taking the action, the next step in offering, in putting your offer out there and creating transformation.
Ooh,
So
I really like that. And we've talked about this.
Yeah.
We talked about this on your podcast, which is this idea of it's not about you. Get out of the way.
It's not about you.
Go
Yeah.
and so nobody buys. Like, okay, like, are
Right.
you a
So
bad
what?
person? Are you loveless?
No.
Like, are you not lovable? Like, go examine that and say, maybe this product didn't connect with this audience. Okay, what else can I do? Like, shrink it down, shrink your self-worth down, shrink your ego down, shrink your feelings of unlovable down. Like, get yourself out of the way so that you can go serve other people.
Yeah. And you have to think about all the things that are possible, because just because one person also said no doesn't mean someone else will say no too, right? That kind of goes back to like thinking big and moving out of that messy middle. Like, you're stuck in that messy middle, but you really could be extraordinary and you can offer extraordinary things, but you've got to allow yourself the runway to do that. And I think that's part of what I love, like, most about what I'm doing. I feel like I'm offering my clients that runway to find their extraordinary in their business and in themselves. And it's fun.
I love that. All right, Andrea, if people want to find you, see what you do, find out about your book, where should they go?
So I think these are the best places. Number one, you can go listen to my podcast called Time to Level Up. You can find that in all your favorite podcast players. You can head right over to Andrea's with an S, links with an S.com, andreaslinks.com. And there you're going to find a link to the podcast. You're going to find a link to my book, and you can go right now and download, even though it's being released at the end of September. So if you're listening before, go download that intro and first chapter. There's going to be tremendous value in that. And you can do that right on that link. And you can also, it links to my website if we want to schedule a call, but direct message me on Instagram. That's probably the best place. Because I love chatting. Like, I love helping you.
What's your handle on
Instagram?
Out. How can they find you?
It's Andrea.Liebross. That's a mouthful. Liebross. .coaching, Andrea.Liebross.coaching. But the link to that even is on andreaslinks.com.
Awesome. Well, I have to say, this has been just very inspiring. I feel like just talking about these hard to talk about things that are kind of right in front of us that can be uncomfortable, I think is so valuable. So I just want to really thank you for doing this, and
You're
really
so welcome.
thank you for coming on the show.
I love it. I think, you know what? Every podcast is worth like millions of dollars, right? When we have these conversations. And I mean, I think that that's what makes the world go round. So thanks for having me.
I hope you guys like this episode. For me, the biggest takeaway is sometimes we can really get in our own way and muck things up, and that if we could just believe in what we are offering and believe in our value, gosh, we are unstoppable. I also like the idea of the messy middle, because I think that when I'm talking to people, they're there and they don't quite know what this is and why it's happening to them. I think that Andrea in this episode really shares that we all go through this. It's normal. It's part of business building. So if you feel like you're in the messy middle of your business and you want some direction, and you're thinking about, hey, maybe I could be selling new products and services to my audience, but gosh, that feels scary, I wouldn't know where to start, get on a call with me. Just head to milotree.com/meet, and maybe I can help give you some clarity. And we can talk about how to get out of that stuck place. So please, again, go to milotree.com/meet. I would love to meet you, and I will see you here again next week.